Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to our channel.
It's Sunday, 7 a.m.
And we are on the way to
Corregidor.
Corregidor Island. We're going to check out the war installations, the Japanese tunnels. This is a big World War II historical monument.
So our Bataan trip is about war.
So we're here at the meeting place at the Vortex gas station. We're waiting for the other members of our
people,
tour and hit the boat across
Corregidor.
to the island.
Here we go.
Go for it.
Dreamt of sunsets. Where you place your head on my shoulders against left unsaid. We sleep back to back. Living in the past, well, the present can leave so fast. When all is said and done,
That's the island.
one's gonna give a fuck. 'Cause those times are gone. When plans
We are now at the opening of Manila Bay. To the north side of Corregidor, that would be the peninsula of Bataan, and to the south side, that will be Cavite. Corregidor is about 3 miles away from the peninsula of Bataan and about 6 to 7 miles away from Cavite. The island was fortified by the Americans as early as 1902. There were 5 islands at the mouth of Manila Bay, namely La Monja, or in English, the Non. This island right here is of course Corregidor, and behind this island to the south side, that would be 3 more islands: Caballo, El Fraile, and Carbo Island.
So yeah, we're arriving at this is the north dock of Corregidor Island.
So now we're here.
And here's the price list.
You can call me Mar. My full name is Marianito. So, we're now right here in Corregidor. Corregidor is a tadpole-shaped island. During the American period, the island was divided into 4 parts. We got the tail side, the bottom side. This is the bottom side. You can see from here, you will find 3 docks. We got the engineering dock, we have the North Mine Wharf, and we got the North Dock again.
So this is the dock from which MacArthur departed the Philippines to go to Australia, 1942.
By 1907, convicts were sent from Manila Bilibid prison all the way here to help in the construction effort of the island. It's a cheap way of building, right? Because you have convicts, working for you. And by 1920s, the Americans started digging up the tunnel. Sorry, 1922. Liches in Tagalog is linta. And saying malinta meaning lots of liches. We are now seeing the west entrance of Malinta Tunnel. Alright, you're looking at the map of Malinta Tunnel. That will be the main tunnel. West entrance, east entrance, north and south entrance. That would be the picture of Malinta Tunnel during the war. Those are the soldiers. And here, General Douglas MacArthur standing right on top of the rubbles on the east entrance. This was shortly after the Americans were able to take the island from the Japanese forces. Hollow plate, right? That means the main tunnel collapsed. The main tunnel now was only rebuilt in the 1980s. But when the Japanese built the tunnel, everything in the main tunnel went down, killing about 2,500 Japanese. How the Japanese tried to rebuild the broken defenses of Corregidor. And by the time the Americans got the island on May 6 of 1942, they tried to rebuild the broken defenses. There were guns here, some of them they tried to fix, but they put their own guns in the island. The headquarters of General George Moore. General George Moore was the commanding officer of the 445 Island. And he was a graduate of Texas A&M. When Corregidor surrendered, he surrendered along with his man. He was also liberated in 1945, but by 1947, when he was able to go back to Texas, in 1947, he took a gun, shot his head. Most likely, he suffered from PTSD. Quezon Lateral. And Manuel Quezon was here. And the reason why he was here, because at that point in time, he was already sick with tuberculosis. This was nearest to the hospital Lateral. The humidity and dampness of the tunnel made his condition even worse. Manuel Quezon, the president. And, there are even moments he needs to go out and catch some fresh air. By February 28th of 1942, he left before MacArthur did. He went all the way to Iloilo, and then Mindanao, Australia, and then he went all the way to the US. August 1, 1944, Manuel Quezon died of tuberculosis in Sararac Lake, New York. That will be the east entrance. Welcome to the bus tour. We're about to take the island on a bus tour. We entered by the west entrance, we're now out on the east entrance. The Malinta Tunnel was literally a roadblock from the head to the tail of the island. The reason why the Americans built the tunnel is part of the road system. We are on the way to the tail of the island. Corregidor is geographically closer to Bataan than it is to Cavite. But Corregidor is not under the political jurisdiction of Bataan, but it is under the political jurisdiction of Cavite. How come? Well, as early as 1902, the Americans fortified the islands. And since it was already a fortified island, it needed to be annexed to the nearest military facility in the area, and that will be Sangli Point, Cavite. So that's why the address of Corregidor right now is Barangay 53-B, Sangli Point, Cavite. You find right there Corregidor Beach Resort, and that is where the 13,000 who surrendered to the Japanese forces in Corregidor May 6, 1942 were incarcerated for 14 days. No food, no shelter, no water. I like to emphasize, the people who surrendered in Corregidor were never ever part of the death march of Bataan, because Bataan surrendered April 9, 1942 when Corregidor kept on fighting 27 more days. Long after Bataan death march was done, Corregidor was still fighting. But the people who were incarcerated there were eventually sent to Parañaque. They marched all the way to Muntinlupa and all the way to the Manila Bilibid prison, where some of them were sent to Cabanatuan to be rescued by the Alamo Scout by 1945. There were 5,100 Japanese soldiers assigned to the island during the American retaking. Let me divide the war in Corregidor into three parts. Japanese invasion happened December 1941 to May 6, 1942. Second part, Japanese occupation of the island 42 to 45. Last one, American retaking February and March of 1945. Now when the Americans came back here, there were 5,100 Japanese soldiers in the island. After the retaking, only 42 of the 5,100 Japanese soldiers survived. The rest died. So you can imagine, at least 5,000 Japanese soldiers were killed in Corregidor, and about 4,500 Japanese soldiers were buried right there. There was a Japanese cemetery right there. And since the island was abandoned after the war, the Japanese cemetery was forgotten and vegetation grew on top. The long-lost Japanese cemetery was only rediscovered when an American veteran from Bataan was able to acquire a picture in a garage sale in Portland, Oregon that shows an unknown American soldier standing in front of a Japanese cemetery, and right behind the Japanese cemetery is that island over there, Caballo. That's when they realized there were Japanese buried here. And when they came here, they looked at the area, they tried digging it up, they indeed saw Japanese bones in the area. And then when they tried to dig everything up, they found at least 20 sacks of bones. Those are Japanese Type 10 guns, 120 millimeter, multi-purpose gun. And if you look right behind the structure, you will find the Jibbukana Shrine, Japanese goddess for mercy. To the Chinese, it is the Chinese goddess for fertility. And right behind, that will be the Shinto Shrine. That will be the Japanese religion for royalty.
This is what MacArthur wrote. It's a history of all the Philippines conflicts.
We shall not forget.
dedicated to the Filipino who knows how to die for love and freedom and liberty.
We're now entering the war memorial zone. Bomb crater in Corregidor were about 1 bomb crater for every 5 square meters of land. And Corregidor is considered the second most bombed island in the world, second only to Malta. To the right, again, we have the Middleside Barracks. It houses the 68th Coastal Artillery, or the enlisted men.